ستستمع الجمعية.
The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency, the Chairman of the Executive Committee of the Palestinian Liberation Organization and President of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas.
باسم الجمعية العامة.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency, the Chairman of the Executive Committee of the Palestinian Liberation Organization and President of the Palestinian Authority, and I ask him to address the Assembly.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, Mr. President of the General Assembly of the United Nations, Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, I extend my congratulations to His Excellency, Mr. Nasser Abdulaziz al-Nasser, on his assumption of the presidency of the Assembly for this session, and I wish him every success. Today, I extend my sincere congratulations on behalf of the Palestine Liberation Organization and the Palestinian people to the government and people of South Sudan for its deserved admission as a full member of the United Nations, wishing them progress and prosperity. I also congratulate the Secretary General, His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon, for his election to a new term at the helm of the United Nations. This renewal of confidence reflects the world's appreciation for his efforts, which have strengthened the role of the United Nations. Excellencies, the question of Palestine is intricately linked with the United Nations via the resolutions adopted by its various organs and agencies, and through the essential and lauded role of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, which embodies the international responsibility toward the plight of Palestine's refugees, who are the victims of Al-Nakba, the catastrophe that occurred in 1948. We aspire for and seek a greater and more effective role for the United Nations in working to achieve a just and comprehensive peace in our region that ensures the inalienable, legitimate national rights of the Palestinian people as defined by the resolutions of international legitimacy embodied by the United Nations. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, a year ago, at the same time, and in this hall, distinguished leaders and heads of delegations addressed the stalled peace effort in our region. Everyone had high hopes for a new round of final status negotiations. which had begun in early September in Washington under the direct auspices of President Obama and with the participation of the International Quartet, as well as Egypt and Jordan, to reach within 1 year a peace agreement. We entered those negotiations with open hearts and attentive ears and sincere intentions, and we were ready with our documents, our papers, and our proposals. But these negotiations broke down just weeks after they were launched. After this, we did not give up and we did not cease our efforts for initiatives and contacts. Over the past year, we did not leave a door to be knocked, or channel to be pursued, or path to be taken, and we did not ignore any formal or informal party of influence and stature to be addressed. We positively considered the various ideas and proposals and initiatives presented from many countries and parties. But all of these sincere efforts and endeavors undertaken by international parties were repeatedly smashed against the rock of the positions of the Israeli government, which quickly dashed the hopes raised by the launch of negotiations last September. The core issue here is that the Israeli government refuses to commit to terms of reference for the negotiations that are based on international law and UN resolutions. And it frantically continues to intensify building settlements on the territory of the state, of the future state of Palestine. Settlement activities embody the core of a policy of colonial military occupation of the land of the Palestinian people and all of the brutality of aggression and racial discrimination against our people that this policy entails. This policy, which constitutes a breach of international humanitarian law and UN resolutions, is the primary cause for the failure of the peace process, the collapse of dozens of opportunities, and the burial of the great hopes that arose from the signing of the Declaration of Principles in 1993 between the Palestine Liberation Organization and Israel to achieve a just peace that would begin a new era for our region. The reports of United Nations missions, as well as reports by several Israeli institutions and civil societies, convey a horrific picture about the size of the settlement campaign, which the Israeli government does not hesitate to boast about, and which it continues to execute through the systematic confiscation of the Palestinian land and the construction of thousands of new settlement units in various areas of the West Bank, particularly in the Arab part of Jerusalem and throughout the West Bank, and through the accelerated construction of the racist annexation wall that is eating up large tracts of our land, dividing it into separate and isolated islands and cantons, destroying family life and communities and harming the livelihoods of tens of thousands of families. The occupying power also continues to refuse issuing permits for our people to build in occupied East Jerusalem, and at the same time it intensifies its decades-long campaign of the demolition and confiscation of homes, displacing Palestinian owners and residents under a multi-pronged policy of ethnic cleansing aimed at pushing them away from their ancestral homeland. Moreover, matters have reached a point where orders have been issued to deport elected representatives from the city, their city of Jerusalem. The occupying power also continues to undertake excavations that threaten our holy places, and its military checkpoints prevent our citizens from gaining access to their mosques and churches. It continues to besiege the holy city with a ring of settlements and with the annexation wall imposed to separate the holy city from the rest of the Palestinian cities. The occupation is racing against time to redraw the borders on our land according to what it wants and to impose a fait accompli on the ground that changes the realities and undermines the realistic potential for the rise of the state of Palestine. At the same time, the occupying power continues to impose a strict blockade on the Gaza Strip and to target Palestinian civilians by assassinations, airstrikes, artillery shelling, persisting with its war of aggression of 3 years ago on the Strip, which resulted in the massive destruction of homes, schools, hospitals, and mosques, and thousands of martyrs and wounded. The occupying power also continues its incursions in areas of the Palestinian National Authority through raids, arrests, and killings at the checkpoints. In recent years, the criminal actions of armed settler militias who enjoy the special protection of the occupation army, these actions have intensified with the perpetration of frequent attacks against our people, targeting their homes, schools, universities, mosques, fields, crops, and trees. Today, they killed one Palestinian who was peacefully protesting. Despite our repeated warnings, the Israeli authorities have not acted to curb these acts, and we hold them fully responsible for the crimes of the settlers. These are but a few examples of the policy of the Israeli colonial settlement occupation, and this policy is responsible for the repeated failure of successive international attempts to salvage the peace process. This policy will destroy the chances of achieving a two-state solution upon which there is an international consensus. And here, I caution, and I caution aloud. This settlement policy threatens to also undermine the structure of the Palestinian National Authority and even end its existence. In addition, we now face the imposition of new conditions that have not previously been raised. Conditions that will transform the raging conflict in our inflamed region into a religious conflict and a threat to the future of 1.5 million Palestinians, citizens of Israel, a matter which we reject and which is impossible for us to accept being dragged to.